Hello, my name is Megan Winkleseth, and the title of my research project is The Stigma Management Strategies of Prison Inmates Ages 50 Plus Seeking Pen Pals. So within this study, I used Meisenbach's Stigma Management Communication Theory to investigate how inmates ages 50 plus manage stigma and persuasively seek to garner responses from non-incarcerated individuals in online personal ads. So to generate my sample for the study, I used meetinmate.com, which has connected male and female inmates to the outside world since 1998. But I want to acknowledge that the terms male and female, which I use in my presentation, are used to reflect the language used on meetinmate.com. However, these terms do exclude those individuals within the prison system who identify outside of those sex categories and the gender binary. My analysis began by looking at the homepage of meetinmate.com, which is a rhetorical wellspring of stigma management communication. When you access the website, you come face to face with a young woman clutching a chain-link fence, and it's her appearance and manner, along with the patterning of the fence, that bring you to the following phrase: "Lonely inmates in the USA seek pen pals." This is where people become steeped in stigma management communication. Particularly on the home page, there is a narrative of seclusion or ideology of forsaken loneliness that is created through that image, and along with the words used to characterize inmates on the website. And it's in the following excerpt that this ideology really seems to shine through. The excerpt reads, quote, "These inmates are very real and are seeking pen pals. Receiving a letter is the highlight of the day for most prisoners. Just think of how lonely it must feel at mail call to never hear your name being called, especially after being locked up for several years and family and friends have deserted you. These inmates can't wait to hear from you. Make the day of a lonely inmate." So this ideology of forsaken loneliness, which is constructed on the homepage of meetinmate.com, is there to garner more of a persuasive response amongst visitors to the website, trying to get them to interpersonally interact with the inmates who have paid a small fee to be listed on the website, and to challenge the seemingly dominant belief they may have that inmates are morally bad or wrong and we shouldn't interact with them. So the research question driving my study was, how, if at all, do inmates ages 50 plus manage their stigmatized status in online personal ads? And I looked at inmates ages 50 plus in particular because I was interested to see if at all the stigma of growing older, of being middle to old age, had any sort of impact on the stigma of incarceration that the inmates may have had. So first, to answer this question, I used Meisenbach's stigma management communication typology, which is constructed of 4 quadrants of stigma management communication strategies, and these quadrants are organized along 2 criteria. The first being the individual's attitude about challenging or retaining public perception of stigma, and the second being the individual's attitude toward the stigma's public applicability to himself, herself, or theirself. So the quadrants look as follow. There is accepting stigma, avoiding stigma, evading responsibility for and reducing the offensiveness of stigma, and denying and ignoring or displaying stigma. So within each of these 4 quadrants, there are a series of stigma management communication strategies in which people employ. And depending on the quadrant, the person may either be accepting the public understanding of stigma and accepting that the stigma applies to self, or challenging the public understanding of stigma and challenging that it applies to themselves. So the method within the study to garner the themes of my analysis, I first analyzed 40 prisoner personal ads using Meisenbach's typology, and that was 20 the ads of 20 male inmates and the ads of 20 female inmates. And after doing so, I determined that there were 4 overarching themes. The first being accepting the stigma of incarceration, the second being avoiding the stigma of incarceration, and the third being reducing the offensiveness of incarcerated stigma, and fourth and finally, the playing into the forsaken loneliness ideology. So the first theme was accepting the stigma of incarceration. So inmates who accepted the stigma of incarceration accepted both public perception of stigma and the application of self. And they did this through the strategy of displaying and disclosing their incarceration. So display and disclosure for these inmates looked like openly referencing the duration of prison sentence. So I will read 2 of the following excerpts. First, I will read Derek, age 51. Quote, I got 12.5 years in prison and I'm working towards the end of this bid. Next, I will read Darlene, age 59. Currently serving a 39-month sentence with 13 months left to serve. So these inmates directly disclose their stigma by explaining the duration of their prison sentence and how many years they have left to serve. The second theme that emerged from my analysis was avoiding the stigma of incarceration. So inmates who employed this strategy were accepting the public perception of stigma, but seeking to challenge its application to themselves. And they did this by hiding or denying their incarceration. Interestingly, they sought to hide or deny their incarceration through their profile pictures. So they're somewhat trying to deny that the stigma was applicable to them by drawing upon images of themselves when they were not incarcerated. And these images are images typical of social media posts or dating apps. So they kind of call upon that sense of just wanting to present and put your best self forward and seeking to hide that stigma, even though that's hard to do with the chain link fence in the background. And that chain link fence permeates the entire website. So stigma can never really be denied or hidden. The third theme, not the final theme, was reducing the offensiveness of incarcerated stigma. So people who use this strategy were challenging the public perception of stigma, but accepting that it applied to themselves. And they did this through the strategy of transcendence. So transcendence is the idea that these inmates were using their stigma as a way to better themselves and to seek a better life. So a good example comes from Ariana, age 50. She says, and I quote, as I face more years here, I am putting this time and place to the best use possible under the reality of the circumstances. I see it as a wonderful opportunity to learn and to teach other inmates who have not had the same opportunity. I am in a unique position in bettering myself through vocational skills and where I can learn academic skills, to be a positive influence to others and give them hope, and coping skills and prepare myself for release with positive agenda. So this is an excellent instance of where transcendence was used and how the stigma of incarceration is actually leading Ariana to a better life. And many inmates employed this strategy as an attempt to reduce the offensiveness of the incarcerated stigma. The fourth and final theme was playing into the forsaken loneliness ideology. And this strategy fit ambiguously into the typology. It seemed to be more of a strategy for persuading outsiders to engage in interpersonal interaction than it was for managing stigma. So male and female inmates who used this strategy seemed to accept the application of stigma by displaying or disclosing their loneliness. Of these 3 excerpts, I will read 2. And these are instances of playing into the ideology. First, Martha, age 59, quote, because I don't have any family, I am lonely, end quote. Next, Richard, age 58, I'm down and a very lonely man. I have no one and nothing, end quote. So these inmates were seeking to kind of tap into that forsaken loneliness ideology in order to kind of garner a sense of sympathy in order to get interpersonal interaction and get someone to engage with them in a communication with them. So the discussion, after talking about my analysis, it was clear that many of the male and female inmates were using all types of communicative strategies from Eisenbach's typology to manage their stigmatized status in online personal ads. But what about the negative perceptions of inmates' middle or old age? Inmates didn't really mention their age. If they did, it was very briefly and almost in a way that they were seeking to avoid any discussion of it. Now to talk about the value of stigma management communication research. Eisenbach's theory is very new, so expanding our use of this theory begins to normalize conversations of stigma, which is very important. And also this research allows groups of stigmatized people to foster connections, and to work on managing their stigma effectively and to reduce the negative effects of stigma. Thank you for listening to my presentation.